Okay, well, hello. This is Travis, and today's August 13th, I think. So I took a look at the Scope Wash program, and I wanted to give this update. And I think I have a recommended strategy for us, engineering side, moving forward within Scope Wash. Maya and I have been talking about sort of looking at the Scope Wash reviews as a program for a little while now, and so this is kind of what I came up with in an afternoon. I just started looking at it, 3 o'clock this afternoon. So first off, first thing I did was look for projects that had Scope Watch review files in the folder. In other words, where are we posting Scope Watch review files? And they're usually pretty easy to find because you'll see a file name that says Scope Wash in it, and they tend to be in that folder 7.05. So I found 61 projects that had Scope Wash review files posted in them. Um, and what I was trying to do with that is try to see if I could identify the project names that are most commonly associated to the Scope Wash projects. And it turns out that's actually pretty easy. Most of the Scope Wash projects kind of give it away with the file name, or I'm sorry, with the project name. And so I think I didn't write down the number, but the lion's share of the projects are either named Scope Wash or have some version of Scope Wash in the project name, or they are major projects like the Redwood City MOB or the Dublin MOB or Baldwin Park MOB, 501 J Street, right? Obviously, the major projects that have surgery centers, they tend to have scope washes in them, and so we do a scope wash review there. But then most everything else, you can tell what it is just by looking at the project name. So okay, that's good. It's good to know. So then what I did is I took that same set of strings there to find the project names, and I went out and looked for projects. These are not necessarily projects that have scope wash review files. These are just projects that have the word scope wash in the file name. And I looked at the years that we've had eBuilder, and then I matched up that list. I found 113 projects that are scope wash projects between 2017 and 2021. Obviously, some of those haven't happened yet. Those match up with about 40 of the ones that we have done reviews, which is to say, in any given year, the projects that are called Scope Wash in eBuilder and the projects that we have actually done review files or have review files sitting up in eBuilder for is roughly half. In like 2018, 2019, we reviewed 11 projects and there's 13 projects that we didn't review. And so I do think that we need to be more systematic about finding these projects and making sure that we get reviews done on them. But then I went in and actually looked at the files that occurred within those years and those projects. And kind of here's what I found for 2018. For 2018, we had, this top list of projects over here on the right that we did have review files for, and then we had the projects, down at the bottom that we did not have review files for. Well, some of those are probably not applicable. One of them says upgrade water supply to the sterile processing department. That's not normally a project that we would really need to do a design review on. They're probably not changing even the equipment there. And so in our normal process, we would mark that as NR and NC. And so I think it's worth bringing this list in, but we are going to have to go through it and mark some of the projects NR and NC. So then I took a look at the projects that we actually did review from 2018, and then the next slide that I'm going to show is from 2019. And the story was pretty common. You would click on the cap number, go to folder 7.05, and you would find something. But what you found was generally a set of comments. It was not frequent at all to be able to determine whether or not that project was approved or not approved. Sometimes you'd find a file there that said it's approved to proceed. But most of the time you just see a set of comments there, no response from the design team, no indication whether there's, it's approved to proceed or not approved to proceed. It's like you could tell they did a review, but the outcome of the review is not apparent, right? So these are the 2018, these are the 2019 projects, largely the same story. Most of the time I found, sets of comments in there, and then that was kind of the end of the story. More often than not, the engineering comments were separate from, there would be a set of plans that had the comments marked up by the planners or whoever the multidisciplinary team. And kind of, I would say 3 times out of 5, Maya had done her comments separately. So there's just a separate set of M&P comments that are just also in the directory. But again, not a lot of responses from the design team, and no back checks, no clearances or anything like that. So here's what I'm going to recommend moving forward. I'm going to recommend that we integrate the scope wash projects into our pipeline report. I don't think it'd be that hard to do. All I've got to do is identify those projects that, a lot of them are already in our pipeline report, because if they're over $500,000 or over $1 million, and many of them are, then they're already in our pipeline report. So I just have to find somehow a way to get those extra projects, the ones that are not over $1 million and need to be in our pipeline report. But I think I can do that pretty easy. Once I get them into the pipeline report, then they'll pretty much work the same as any other engineering review. Well, if there's no plans or no BOD posted, then we'll request that from the project manager. Once the files get posted, then we'll go ahead and do the review. I don't think we need to sit in a meeting to do the review. Most of the comments that I've seen are pretty repetitive comments that come into the plumbing section. So I don't think we need to sit in a multidisciplinary meeting to get that done. And then I think we would go ahead and use the same naming conventions that we're using elsewhere in the engineering program. So if there's outstanding design issues, we would just flag those as DIO. And then once all the issues are responded to and back checked and resolved, then we would flag the file as ADIR, and then we would know that that project is good to go. If the construction date comes up and there's still design issues outstanding, then obviously those project managers would get their action items and say, hey, you got to resolve all your design comments before you proceed to construction. So basically the bottom line is, I think we would drop out of the interactive meetings. I know those interactive meetings are taking up a lot of Maya's time, and I don't think they're necessary. I think we can do these reviews offline, at least looking at the content. I think we would impose the same level of scrutiny that we impose on all the rest of our projects. In other words, we're not just going to issue comments, we're also going to back check them. We're going to make sure they get resolved. We're going to flag the project manager if they're not resolving their comments. And then finally, I think we are going to talk about shifting the lead because Maya's workload this year is pretty heavy, but this is it's a pretty stock checklist that we can go through. So I'm thinking either Glenn or Sandy can take over the lead on this review. Okay, that's it. That's all I got.